HarmonyOS is being positioned as the world's third major mobile operating system. It's a bold claim, and depending on who you ask, it's either the future of Chinese tech independence or a work in progress that is not quite ready for prime time. But what do Chinese people actually think about it? I found that the Chinese view is often represented pretty one-sided, but that's not really true. So I went through Chinese social media, WeChat articles, and comment sections to find out. And what I found is a diverse range of perspectives, from strong supporters to frustrated users to pragmatic fence sitters. So in this video, let's have a look. Let's start with the national pride perspective. This is strong sentiment, as you will see. I usually don't want to talk about politics in my videos, but in this case, it's kind of impossible to ignore this view that many people hold. For example, a user from Zhejiang writes, "Every generation has its responsibilities and duty. If our generation doesn't choose the path of resisting America, we leave an entire harder task for the next generation. So let's use Huawei 6.0 first. Eventually, it will surpass America's Apple system." This framing of consumer choice as a form of national contribution comes up pretty repeatedly. This is a tech war. Huawei is the assault team. I can't go directly to the battlefield, but I can still supply some ammunition. And this perspective, for example, which acknowledges the current limitations while also expressing support. Chinese people will definitely choose domestic system, even though it's not perfect yet. And this national pride perspective is usually the only opinion that is presented in articles and news outside of China. And sure, whether you agree with this framing or not, it's clearly a significant motivator for a portion of the user base. But as we will see, it is far from the only perspective. Not everyone accepts the world third major system framing. Some Chinese users push back on this narrative quite directly. What kind of global is this? I've been abroad and I've never seen anyone using Huawei. Another user from Beijing put it bluntly, globally there are only two major systems, only in China you could count three. It's a reality check where HarmonyOS currently stands in terms of international adaptation. One recurring comment that I get on a lot of my videos is about the debate if HarmonyOS is actually independent or it's essentially Android with different branding. So a user from Guangdong writes, "Isn't HarmonyOS just Android?" Another user was more pointed, "HarmonyOS is just wearing HarmonyOS skin, but essentially Android." And let me clear this up once and for all. HarmonyOS since 5.0 has nothing to do with Android. This is just a misconception that commenters both outside and inside of China still believes. If you are familiar with the Chinese app ecosystem, you probably know about WeChat. WeChat is basically a mandatory app in China, and it's so much more than just a messenger app. If you really wanted, you could probably manage everything through WeChat and wouldn't have a need for any other app. And thus, the HarmonyOS experience becomes a bit dependent on how good the WeChat app is. This is a huge issue actually inside China. If WeChat can't deliver the same functionality as, for example, it does on the Android version or the iPhone version, some people will discard HarmonyOS as a whole. I found an article detailing some of the issues that users have with WeChat HarmonyOS version, and some of these issues I encountered myself. The comment section on that article was filled with users sharing similar frustrations. My dad upgraded to HarmonyOS 6, and he was so angry he was howling. A frustrated user writes, "For moments comments with images, HarmonyOS 6 can't display the images, just shows image text. Video playback doesn't show viewing history. Many previously saved WeChat favorites can't be opened. Gaudi Maps and Didi can't even search some addresses. Many banking apps are also incompatible. My Spice already has given up on Huawei and switched to Vivo." Several users are also reporting rolling back to previous versions. "After upgrading, I had all sorts of problems adapting, so I rolled back to 4.0. It took me half a day to see a familiar interface again. I'm not planning to buy Huawei for my next phone." The same user later added that the rollback process with Huawei Support's assistant took from noon to 6:30 p.m. "I'm so scared now that I won't dare click on any upgrade prompts anymore." These aren't anti-Huawei voices. These are Huawei consumers encountering real usability issues. On the flip side, there is one nice thing about the HarmonyOS WeChat version that is consistently praised, and that's the lack of ads. HarmonyOS 6 has 0 ads. So the HarmonyOS version of WeChat doesn't display ads in articles or comment sections. The one user has a very cynical explanation. It's because there are no ads. What app company would contribute so selflessly? The implication being that Tencent simply hasn't invested enough time in its HarmonyOS version to implement its own ad system. Is that a feature or oversight? Depends on your perspective. So there's a whole discussion on who is responsible for this problem. Is it Huawei or is it Tencent? And this is where it gets a little bit complicated. No solution, can only wait for Tencent to adapt it. But Tencent said this is very troublesome. They need to rewrite the code. So this is the core challenge. Because HarmonyOS no longer is Android compatible, every app needs to be rebuilt from the ground up. For a company like Tencent, with billions of users on Android and iOS, the business case for investing heavily in a platform with much smaller market share is complicated. One user framed it diplomatically. Whose product is WeChat? Is the solution HarmonyOS 6 or WeChat's developers? System improvements and app improvements are like going to the hospital. You need to find the right department and get the right medicine. This is a classic chicken and egg problem for new platforms. Users won't come without apps, and developers won't invest time without users. So if we look beyond the software issues, there is another barrier that comes up frequently in these discussions, and it's price. Huawei isn't a budget brand, and many users point out that this creates a real tension with the support domestic products narrative. A user from Chongqing writes, Huawei is already very profitable. I consider using HarmonyOS when it offers better value for money. One user offered a more detailed market analysis. Huawei currently can't compete with Android in terms of value for budget phones. Consumers will vote with their feet and choose what suits them best. This means Huawei's low-end devices with typically lower performance and higher prices will have trouble winning market favor. And some users are more direct about the situation. Can't afford it. Or can't afford to use Huawei yet. This is a significant point, actually, because if HarmonyOS is positioned as a patriotic choice, but then the hardware required to run it is priced at a premium, that limits how many people can actually participate, regardless of the willingness or the support of domestic products. But not everyone views this through a nationalistic lens. Some users are more practical in their approach. A user from Guangdong writes, it's just a phone system. It doesn't represent anything. Just use whichever one works. Another user comment stood out for its different criteria entirely. I'll use whoever treats their employees well, whoever follows labor laws, no distinction by nationality. A true comrade. And this is an observation that captures how many users actually operate. Huawei is for work, Apple is for life. The reality for many users is that these aren't mutually exclusive choices. Some maintain multiple devices for different purposes. Then, of course, there are some more critical voices, and some users express them with a more pointed criticism, often using irony. Definitely HarmonyOS. Even though the phone specs are low and the price is high and the system is garbage, as a Chinese person, I should unconditionally support Huawei. And this comment, which starts enthusiastically before revealing its twist. Blindly support Huawei. Even being a guinea pig is fine. Even if there are many flaws, they are only temporary. Pride of the nation. Backbone of technology. Use Huawei. Be superior. You rich people, buy it first. My salary is too low. I'll use Apple for now. These comments highlight the tension users feel between national sentiment and practical affordability or usability concerns. And then we have the long-term believers that despite the current challenges, they express genuine optimism about HarmonyOS potential. Although HarmonyOS still has shortcomings, I'm willing to grow with it. And some people focus on the technical foundations. Bullish on HarmonyOS, the microkernel foundation and the full-stack architecture are indeed more competitive than traditional macrokernel systems. And there are those who take the long view. For a complete new system, having gaps is normal. The ecosystem gap can't possibly be filled in just 2 years. And a user from Chongqing adds, the Android version had these problems at the beginning too. They were all gradually solved step by step. This historical perspective is worth considering. Every major platform has its growing pains. So in conclusion, what does Chinese people actually think about HarmonyOS? The honest answer is there is no single opinion. You have users who see it as a national priority, a way to achieve technological independence in an uncertain geopolitical times. And you have skeptics who questions whether the third global system label fits the current reality. You have frustrated daily users with real functionality gaps, especially when it comes to essential apps like WeChat. You have price-conscious users who point out supporting domestic tech is harder when it's priced at a premium. And then you have the pragmatists who just want a phone that works, regardless of who makes it. And then you have the long-term believers who acknowledge the current shortcomings, but see potential in the underlying technology. So, as you can see, we have a wide flora of opinions. But for me, it was very interesting to see this wide range of comments and to realize that, yeah, at the end of the day, it's just a operating system on a phone. People aren't that concerned. It's not the most important thing in life. And there's many opinions on it. Some happy, some not. And I hope you enjoyed this as well. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.